evening, everybody. My name's Astrid Breedy, and I am the Director of the Financial Program for L.E.A.D program. I want to welcome you all here to our second seminar, our second financial seminar, Making and Keeping Your Money During Uncertain Times. I think this is extremely important, especially what's happening around us. So this seminar is extremely important as well as it's very timely. Before we get started, I want to do the land acknowledgement. As treaty people on Turtle Island, we are obligated to uphold treaties made from a long time ago. Where I'm situated, as well as our presenter, Pierre, I would like to acknowledge the traditional territories of the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation, the Mississauga peoples, and the treaty territory of the Chippewas of Georgina Island First Nation. I also want to thank the First Peoples for their ongoing teaching of how we are to learn on the land and from the land in partnership with each other, the animals and the plants. So we're going to look at the agenda of what we're going to be talking about today. First of all, we're going to have a little bit of a recap. Pierre's going to recap of what we learned in our first session, which was budgeting like a boss. Then he's going to talk about savings and investing, the power of compounding. Then he's going to talk about weighing the difference between your Tfsa, your tax-free savings account, versus your Rrsp. And he's going to sum it all up. And then at the end, there will be a portion for questions and answers. So we're really, really happy to have Pierre Tomiczek today as our presenter. And I'll give you a little bit about Pierre. First and foremost, he's a father of two beautiful young women, ages 23 and 18. He's also a certified financial planner with Experior Financial Group Inc., a small business entrepreneur and an educator, who also teaches at both George Brown College and Humber College Business School. Pierre is a results-driven financial planning sales management professional with over 30 years of experience in the Canadian financial services industry. He also teaches future financial planners at various financial institutions in their journey to obtain the CFP designation. He's also very committed to give back to his community by being the chair of the Education Committee of the National Policy Alliance Canada, a leading African-Canadian nonprofit organization. So join me in welcoming Pierre. Thanks, Pierre. Take it from here.
Thank you, Astrid. God, I sound important with all that stuff that you said about me. So hopefully I'll be able to live up to your bio of me. So one of the things that before we get going, this presentation is very much interactive. So you could wait and ask questions at the end, or you could stop me and raise your hand and ask questions. And I like it to be more of engaging, more interactive than me just lecturing. So at any time, by all means, stop me if you want some further clarification or if you want to expand on a particular topic. So what did we learn from budgeting like a boss? Well, I learned a great deal. I learned that the importance of preparing a budget, right? So that is basically identifying or comparing our needs versus our wants. And this is very timely in these days and times. So you figure out exactly what are your expenses and your income. And hopefully your income is greater than your expenses. And if it's not, then we need to go back to the drawing board to further clarify what's an absolute that we need and what is maybe a good to have. And once we've gone this through a few times, then hopefully we'll be able to identify surplus funds. And those surplus funds could help us in terms of reaching our various goals that we may have. So once we've identified any surplus funds, we could maybe start to implement an emergency fund. An emergency fund, in my practice right now, this is probably before we do anything, before we talk about saving, before we talk about investing, I want to make sure that when and if the next COVID-19 hits, we don't have to rely on the government to assist us in our day-to-day expenses. So in years past, what they've talked about, what the rule of thumb was for financial planning was to have roughly about 3 to 6 months worth of lifestyle expenditures saved up, not invested in, let's say, a savings account or a TFSA account. But what COVID brought to the forefront and brought to light is that it's been roughly about 1 year now. March will be 1 year since everything shut down. And what used to be roughly about 3 months to maybe maximum of 6 months to find a suitable job if we left a particular employment, now it's looking like it might take 9 to 12 months. So we need to be prepared to have roughly about 9 to 12 months worth of income or expenses saved up just for a rainy day. Once we've implemented this emergency fund, then we could look at now starting to paying ourselves first. So maybe putting 10% down in terms of reaching various goals, maximizing RSPs and TFSAs, and also maybe looking at paying down debt is also very, very important. So once we've done all that, then we could look at saving and investing. All right. Saving versus investing. I like this line. Which basically says that poor people see a dollar as a dollar to trade for something they want right now, right? Immediate gratification, where rich people see every dollar as a seed that can be planted to earn hundreds of more dollars. And then we replant it, we reinvest it to earn thousands of more dollars. So the whole marketing machine that focuses on immediate gratification, we have to maybe pause and see, really, is this really a want or is this really a need? Let's plant the seed for the future and maybe for moms and dad for future generations. So savings versus investing. And savings often and investings are kind of used simultaneously or interchangeably, but there is a difference. One of the things I like to say is if you're looking uh, to invest for a short period of time. So let's say you want to save towards the down payment of a house, and you plan to purchase your house in the next few years, 2 to 5 years, then you really don't want to take on any risk, because if an economic downturn occurs, such as COVID, it could potentially wipe out your savings. So if we are putting money aside for a short period of time, then we don't want to take on any risk. So saving is the setting aside of money you don't spend for emergencies, but for a future purchase. It's money that needs to be readily accessible with very little to no risk and with the least amount of taxes. So if it's something less than 5 years, then then we're talking about saving. We're not talking about investing. And if we're talking about saving, then we can't really tackle on any types of risk. Now, if we have a longer time horizon, right? So let's say our goal is retirement. Our goal is our kids' education. Uh, Anything that's 10 years or more, now we're talking about investing. Now we could take on a bit more risk. And so investing is not really looking at buying investment vehicles that are safe. It's looking at taking on a bit more risk, such as maybe buying stocks, bonds, mutual funds, real estate, rental properties, and so on, that will make you money. And because it's for a longer period, we could weather the ups and downs of the market. And as I'll show you with various graphs, is that the market goes up and down. I mean, past 2 days, I've been whatever little hair that I have, I've been trying to figure out, scratching my head, why has BlackBerry stock gone up 30% in the past couple of days? I probably am the only one on this webinar that has an actual BlackBerry stock. So that tells you how old that I am, but I'm still trying to figure it out. So in the short term, we can make money, but we could also potentially lose a great deal amount of money in the short term. But if we're investing for the long term, as you'll see with the graph, the trend typically is upward. And when we're looking for the long term, you'll see the power of compounding. Albert Einstein said the most powerful thing in the universe is the power of compounding. Compound interest is your friend. And if we take a look, and since uh, since I teach financial planning and investing at both George Brown and Humber College, there will be a test at the end of this seminar. So be ready, have your pens and paper ready. So the power of compound interest, let's take a look at, and that is interest on interest. I want to take a look at investing about $100 each month, either at the ages of 15, 20, or 25 or 30, and we're going to invest to age 60. And we're going to see the difference in starting when we're 15, when we're 20, when we're 25, 30, to age 60. So let's hazard a guess. Let me ask anyone either through the chat room or through, if you want to unmute yourself, what do you think would be the end result if you invested $100 each
Oh
month,
my God.
either starting at 15 and
Is
at a
your
rate
friend?
of 6%? What do you think would be the end result at age 60? What do you think? How much money would you have? Oh,
Probably
Bobby,
chose the wrong place for that.
good answer about
Did you
BlackBerry.
ask out?
Yeah,
No,
we could talk about
no,
that.
I
So
barely knew
Gene,
him.
so Gene
He
said
seemed extremely shy.
72,000. I
Well,
think, you know what? Let me just mute the, okay, all right, we're back. So Gene says $72,000. So we're investing $100 a month, right? At 6%. Oh, Yulika, $1 million. $1 million. Okay. Oh, that's 70, Gene, 72,000 with no compounding. Okay, good. Anybody else? Rashid, oh, you're going big, 2 million, $2 million. All right, now let's take a look. A hundred dollars, just $100 a month, right? That at 6%, if you start at age 15, it will grow to 262. If you start at 20 and you delayed 5 years, now we're down to 190. If you delay even further, we're down to 137. And the later that we start, that interest on interest is not working for you. It's kind of working against you, right? Now, let me ask you this. What is the maximum that you could contribute into a TFSA? Anybody know? What's the maximum that one could contribute into a TFSA? $6,000. Yolika, you're on the ball. You get an A in my class for sure, right? So $6,000 per year. So if we divide that by 12, so that is $500 a month. So let's look at now, instead of investing $100 a month, as this chart shows, why don't we invest the maximum allowable into a TFSA, which is $500 a month. And if that's the case, then your LECA, then your $1 million that you talked about earlier, there you go. Investing $500 a month, and if you started at 15, you would have 1.3 million. If you started at 20, you would be close to a million, 950. If you waited to 25, you have about 686. And if you waited till 30, you would have almost $500,000. So the sooner you start, the sooner you would be entitled. And Bobby, you're absolutely right. So you would not be able at age 15 to open a TFSA. A TFSA is available for Canadian residents that are age 18 and older. So you would have to wait till age 18, but nothing stops you from investing outside of a TFSA prior to age 15. But very good point, Bobby. Excellent. All right. So now we see the power of compounding in effect. And I just chose a moderate rate of return, 6%. When I'm looking at my clients, I'm not shooting for the stars. I'm not shooting for double digits rate of return. By nature, I'm conservative, maybe because I'm old. So, and old people like myself tend to be conservative. But you can imagine the return if we just increased it by 1% or even if we had double digit returns, so you can magnify that. I see your chart only goes up to age 80. What happens when I didn't want to make people cry. So as a result of that, I stopped at 30. So you can imagine the number would be even lower if you started at age 35. You would be about 250 to about $300,000 if you started at 35 and so on. Okay. Hope that helps, Dinah. Okay. So I'm gonna need if you have a pen and paper ready, like I said, not that we're doing a quiz, but there's going to be an interactive component to this. So let's take a look. Once now we've looked at potentially investing, and we're looking at I've talked about potential rates of return, 6%, 8%, 9, 10, and maybe even more, right? But this will depend on the risk that you are willing to take. One of the rules of thumb, the greater the risk, the lower the risk, the lower the return, right? The higher the risk, the higher the potential return. So we need to determine our risk tolerance. Now, what did these people have in common? What do you think? These people, what did they have in common? So we got Nicolas Cage. I know it's old. Uh, okay, they have lots of money. They're all rich. Maybe at one time they were all rich. Thank you, Agassi. They lost money. They went bankrupt. All of these individuals went bankrupt. And I'm a big sports fan, so I don't know if you know this particular individual. So this is Lil Kim. This is MC Hammer, Wesley Snipes, Pamela Anderson, and Nicolas Cage. This gentleman right here, I don't know if you're a hockey fan, but that's Evander Kane. He's a hockey player for the San Jose Shark, one of the few black players in the league. He made in the past 5-6 years, made about close to $50 million. And guess what? He's already bankrupt. He just filed for bankruptcy basically last week. Why? The risk tolerance. They took on a bit too much risk without really taking a look at what they are willing to lose. So what did they have all in common, all of these individuals? Well, besides what Ellie said, some of them went to jail for tax evasion, Wesley Snipes being one of them. They didn't take a proper look at their risk tolerance. If they knew what they know now, they would have taken various steps, various strategies to minimize their exposure. So let's take a I don't know if there's any Simpsons fans, but let's just take a look at this particular slide.
Now, before I execute this order, are you sure you understand the risks of stock ownership?
Absolutely. You heard the monkey. Make the trade.
For automated stock prices, please state the company name.
And emotion.
And emotion. Up 1 1/2.
Yahoo!
Yahoo. Up 6 1/4.
What is this crap?
Fox Broadcasting. Down 8.
Sleep tight, my beloved. You're my ticket out of this hellhole.
Homer!
Sorry. Our ticket out of this hellhole.
Turning to the stock market, Animotion is up an eighth.
Yes.
After plunging 75 points this morning.
Oh, I hope plunging means up and 75 means 200.
The firm declared super duper bankruptcy, which is terrible news for the company's only stockholder, Homer Simpson.
Oh!
All right. Perfect. Homer, I guess he just went full steam ahead and invested without truly understanding the risk associated with stock investing. Yes, there's the potential to be in the money, but there's also the potential to be out of the money. So, one of the things that you need to determine is your risk tolerance. And before you start to investing, I just want to see if you have a pen and paper right now, if we were to do this, just trying to figure out what your risk tolerance is. What do you think your risk tolerance is right now? What do you think your risk tolerance? Would you say you are conservative? Are you balanced? Are you growth? Are you aggressive? Are you very aggressive? What do you think? So Jean says she's aggressive. She's high risk. Anybody else? What do you think you are? Medium. Bobby thinks he's medium. So that's, medium risk, 50%. He's willing to take on a bit of risk. So Agassiz said low risk. Rashid, small, so again, low. Joseph, non-existent. There's always a risk, Joseph. There's always a risk. Astrid is low risk. See, Astrid is an accountant, so they don't like to take too much risk. So that's low risk. Balance. All right. So you kind of have an idea as to your risk level. Let's take this short quiz that I go through with all of my clients before I start to invest. So I want you to basically take a look and let me know answer these particular questions. If your gross annual income is 25,000 or less, then write down A. If it's between 25 and 50, write down B, and so on. If your net worth, that's your assets minus your liabilities. If it's a negative number, if it's less than 25, write down A. If it's between 25 and 50, B, and so on and so forth. Okay, so a lot of you probably haven't started investing, so question 2 and 3 may not be truly applicable to you. But let's look at investment knowledge. What is your knowledge of investments? If you have no knowledge, I want you to write A down. If you have limited knowledge, so that is, you know the basics, right? The basic characteristics of the different savings and investments account, right? So about GICs, savings account, a bit about stocks, you know the basics. And give yourself C if your investment knowledge is good. So you know the different or types of investment, and you understand that stocks are more riskier than bonds. And if you have an excellent understanding of stocks, then I want you to to give yourself to write D. And what is your investment goals? If your investment goals is security, I want you to write A. If your investment goals are income to generate a bit of income, I want you to write B. If it's for growth, I want you to write C. And if it's for aggressive growth, I want you to write D. And very aggressive, I want you to write E. Then we're going to look at the type of risk that you're willing to take. It kind of cut off here, but if you want to take no risk whatsoever, I want you to write again the letter A. If you want to, if you want to write, um, if you want to take a bit of risk, I want you to write B. If you want to take medium risk, that is to take advantage of the potential growth that certain products offer, you accept that the value of your investment may fluctuate, go up and down. I want you to write C. And if you want to take medium to high risk, I want you to write D. And if you want to take, if you're very aggressive, want to take high risk, I want you to write E. Then we're going to look at question 7. If one of your investments dropped by 20% within the 6 to 9 months, what would you do? So we are investing for a long period of time. So let's say we're investing for 10 years, and within a 6 to 9 month period, less than 1 year, you've invested, let's say, $5,000, and your $5,000 is now down to $4,000. What would you do? Would you A, sell the whole investment to avoid further market fluctuations? So give yourself, so write another A. So you don't want to take any risk. Or would it be you would sell a portion of your investment, not all of it? So then write B. Or would you hold on to the investment and hope that the market goes back up? So you're not going to do anything, right? You're going to hope that the market goes back up. So give yourself C. And would you invest further? So you're buying low now. So you view this as a buying opportunity. So would you give your, if that's you, then give yourself D. And then the last question here is, let's look at 3 portfolios, right? I know it's a bit, I know it's not that big, but it, if let's look at 3 portfolios, right? We've got portfolio A. We see that that line is zero return. So below that line, that means you're losing money, right? So portfolio A is kind of a low risk conservative investment. You're not going to lose a lot of money, right? And you can make a bit of money. So if you're okay with that volatility, with that potential return, right? Then write A. Or are you more comfortable with B? B, you could lose about 6 to 7% of your investment, but you could also potentially make about 12%. If you're willing to accept that level of risk and that level of fluctuation, then write B. Or C, you could lose about 15% of your investment, or you can make about 20%. And you're okay with that big up and down, that big fluctuation. If you're okay with that, then I want you to write the letter A. Now, after you wrote all those letters, right, I want you to tell me how many A's did you have and how many B's did you have? And then we'll see. Then I'm going to give you a score. So you had 1A from all of the various A's. So you've had, so 1A, 1B, and how many C, so if you could tell me how many A's, B's, C's, and D's did you have? Okay. All right. So Agassiz 5As, one 1B, and one C. So okay, okay. So 2As, 3Bs. So a lot more. So oh, Bs. Okay. All right. For yeah, it's going real quickly. All right, let me kind of show you what your score, what the score would be. So let me go to Joseph, 2As, 3Bs, and 1C. You would fall in the moderate profile. You would be between 22 and 35. That's Joseph. Blaze, you would 5As. You would fall in the conservative profile. Janice, 5Bs, you would be in the moderate profile. Uh, Ka- Kating, 4As, 2Bs, and 1D, you would fall in the moderate profile. Um, Kobe, 1A, 5Bs, and 1Cs, you're borderline balance. You're borderline here. You're moderate balance type of profile. And what do we have? Erica, oh, 3Cs, two. Erica, woof. Erica, you would be a growth slash almost aggressive investor. Astrid, I thought you were low, Astrid. Astrid, you are more of a balance investor. Joshua, 3B. Oh, Joshua, you are definitely a growth investor, right? And David, 4Cs, 2Bs, and one A. David, you're also a growth and investor. So this exercise that I do with my client, a lot of times your perception, you think of yourself as either as low risk, as Astrid thought she was low risk, and she was slightly a higher risk type of individual. But a lot of times is that people perceive that they're willing and able to take on a lot of risk, but in actuality, they are of a lower risk nature, right? Dinah, so we're just getting some just to come in. Dinah, 3As, 1C, and 1D, you would be close to you would be moderate, Dinah. Okay, so I could provide you what I could do. I could provide you with the, and Rashid, you're more conservative. I could provide the Astrid at the end, the the exact all of the questionnaires, all of the various questions, and then you would be able to determine your exact score, so you could do it on your own. All right, good. So now we've determined your risk tolerance, and now we're looking at taking investing. You missed some question. Okay. Yeah, yeah. So, Saja, we will provide that. We will provide that to you. And if for some reason you're not able to receive it, you guys could connect with me directly. I'm just gonna type my email address in the chat room, and I'll be more than happy to provide you with any resources that you may need. So if you want the entire questionnaire, be more than happy to provide that to you. Okay. All right. So now we've determined our risk tolerance, right? So now we know that we are either low to high risk. So now there's a myriad of investment vehicles that we could invest in based on our risk tolerance. We don't want to take on too much risk just because so and so says that they doubled their money on let's say cryptocurrency on Ethereum or Bitcoin. You have to invest based on your risk tolerance. So there's a various list of investments, and we'll go through them basically one by one. So let's take a look at savings account. So the savings account is Most of you would probably have one at your local bank or credit union or even trust company. So it's a bank account where you deposit money for as a safe place to keep to hold your cash, and they might pay you interest. Do we know how much interest that you generate, that you earn in your savings account at your bank? If you have a bank account, oh, Jean is too smart for me. That's because she used to work in a bank. Dinah, all right, 1%. Okay. Anybody else? 2%. Rashid, if I could find 2%, let me know. Let me know. I want to bank where you bank. All right. Astrid, 1%. Here we go. You guys are close. So I did some kind of research, right? And I looked at the best rates currently available for $1,000, right? And also for $5,000, right? So if you have, let's say, a high interest savings account, they will pay you 1.5% at EQ Bank. This is an alternative bank. It is CDIC covered. So if that bank goes bankrupt, your money is protected up to $100,000. So you don't have to be truly worried when you're investing in certain types of banks. So, oh, EQ, increase it to 2. Okay, perfect. Yeah. So here's the thing. Here's what you got to be careful, because I know CIBC had an advantage account, and right now they're offering 1.5%. The 1.5% is only for 30, 60, or 90 days. And after that initial rate, as Gene said, the rate is going to drop to 0.05%. So a lot of those, the mainstream banks will provide you with a bonus right now, but it's only for a short period of time, usually anytime between 30 to 90 days. And after that, it's going to drop to the regular rate. These smaller banks will give you a higher rate of return. And even Tangerine, which kind of markets itself as a great place to save, what's 0.1%? It's not even 1%. Does anybody know what the inflation rate is right now? Besides Gene. Okay. Oh, Wendy. Okay. I didn't know. Okay. Yeah, Julia, 2%. Yeah. So it's roughly about 2%, 2.1%. The government actually kind of loves to have inflation, which is not necessarily a bad thing, people. They like inflation to be between 1% and 3%. As long as prices, what inflation is, it's the price of the goods and services that are out there in the market. So what we like, or the government likes, the prices to rise anywhere in between 1 to 3%. If it's in between 1 to 3%, then the government is happy. They're not going to do anything. They usually aim for the middle, and they would like it to be right now around 2%. So that means prices of goods are going to increase on an annual basis by about 2. And they're okay with that. We don't want inflation to be like Zimbabwe, whereby it's 1,000,000%. What I mean by that is that today you go and buy a loaf of bread, and it's $5. Then you go tomorrow and buy that same loaf of bread, it's $50. You go next week, it's $500. You go the week after, $5,000. That's rapid inflation. The government doesn't want that. They just want it steady as you go. So inflation being about 2% right now, if you put your money into a savings account, you're not even keeping up with inflation. And what though this webinar doesn't talk about taxes, but when you make money in Canada, you've got to pay the piper. You've got to pay taxes. So you're not keeping up with inflation by having the money in your savings account, and you've got to pay taxes on the little money that you've made. But if we are saving money towards the down payment of a house, we don't want to take on any risk, then savings account is where to put our money. Now we're going to look the next one. We're going to look at the GIC, Guaranteed Investment Certificate. And a GIC, I like GICs because of that first G. It's guaranteed. I could go to bed and know that I'm not going to lose my money. That is guaranteed. So there's no risk of losing money, but because it's a low risk investment, the return on that is also low. And typically, you could buy a GIC, a guaranteed investment certificate, at a bank, trust company, credit union for a fixed length of time, anytime between 1 and 5 years. It could be shorter. We'll call them term deposit, and you could invest for longer, up to, let's say, 10 years, but nobody wants to be locked in for that long period of time. So when you invest in a GIC, your money is locked for that 1 year, 2 year, 3, 4, or 5 years. Even if you beg the bank to break it, they will not break it. If they do, there'll be a severe penalty that you have to pay. So if you're going to invest in a GIC for a longer period of time, then you have to make sure that you won't need that money for that length of time. All right. So GIC rates are slightly higher than our than savings account rates. Not much, but still higher. So we see here are some good rates. I didn't provide the name of the banks, but you could have anywhere 1.4 for 1 year and 1.8 for 5 years. Some of them may offer an intro rate, and it could go higher than the 1.8, could potentially be 2%. But if you choose the longer term, then you are locked in for the 3, 4, 5 year rate. So GICs are good, again, safe and safe type of investment that you could have and not have to worry about losing your money. Next, let's look at bonds. A bond is like an IOU from, let's say, the government. The government of Canada is the biggest issuer of bonds. So the government needs money, right? They need money to pay for all of the CERB money for COVID, for all of the goodies that we like, right? The roads, the defense, the highways, the healthcare that we're entitled to, that we receive. So the government of Canada and the provinces, they need money. So who did they beg money to? Investors. So they're begging investors, and they're promising to pay the investors, like you and I, interest every 6 months. Typically, a bond, i- typically in years past, would pay slightly higher than GIC rates. And the government of Canada, being having the ability to tax their residents and having the ability to go in the province of Saskatchewan, in Regina, where the Bank of Canada is, to print money, you're pretty much assured that they will be able to pay you back when you want your money. So the bank the Bank of Canada has the highest credit rating of all the various institution. So what is a credit rating? So each bond um, could be issued by a government, by a corporation, um, and depending on the government, so it could be the federal government, could be the government of Ontario, we're going to assign a credit rating to that particular institution. So just like we assign a credit score when you are borrowing from a bank or institution, we also assign a credit rating to to various issuers. And a good credit rating on the personal side is anything 680 and above. an excellent credit rating for on the bond side is anything above triple B, and the best that you could have is triple A. And that is what the government of Canada has the highest credit rating. So that basically means your risk of losing money in investing in a government of Canada bond is low. So below triple A, we've got double A, and after double A, we've got A, and after A, we've got triple B, and that's the bottom. If you go below triple B into double B, that's where we start talking about junk bonds. That's where you're taking a chance, you're taking a risk. And as Ellie said, yes, the lower the risk, right? So it's triple A rated, that means the lower the return, right? So the government of Canada has a very low risk of default, and as a result of that, the rate of return is very low for a 5-year and a 30-year bond. If you want to take on a bit more risk, then you may have to go to, let's say, a provincial bond that has a lower credit rating. So let's say a double A rating, or a corporate, a company that has a credit rating of, let's say, triple B, and then you could generate a higher potential rate of return. What is the highest personal credit rating? So you're looking at anything about anything, and Gene will help me on that one. But anything above 700, you're that's an excellent credit rating. And if you're getting close to 800, that's even uh, that's basically off the chart. Got a question. Can you say why anyone would buy a bond? Individuals that would buy a bond would be typically it's aimed at um, low risk investors, typically seniors, would purchase bonds. The reason being is that they're going to get that steady income. Every 6 months, the government of Canada is going to deposit income, interest income in their bank account. So they could rest aside, they don't have to worry, go to bed. Every 6 months, that money will be deposited into their bank account. So typically, very, very conservative individuals and seniors, people age 65 or are retired, they kind of like bonds for that steady income. Younger people, they don't necessarily look at bonds right now, but it's a good tool to have if when we're going to talk about a diversified portfolio. It's a good investment to have in any portfolio. Okay. All right. So bonds, maybe not so sexy. Not too many people love bonds. Let's look at the stuff that's a bit more sexy. Stocks. I don't know if that's sexy, but stocks, this is where you could potentially make a great deal of money. And you could potentially lose a great deal of money. So you would have to take a look at your risk tolerance to determine if you could weather the ups and downs of this roller coaster ride that we call stocks. So a stock in an investment that represents a share in a company. When you buy a stock of a particular company, you are an owner of that company. It may be a small percentage of ownership, but you are an owner of that company. And as a result of that, you have certain rights. So you could potentially vote during their board of directors meetings. But the main reason that individuals buy shares of various companies is for the possibility of that stock, that share, to appreciate in value, to go up in value. So we are buying a particular stock in a company, not because we want to own the company, not because we want to run the company and tell Elon Musk what he should do with Tesla, but because we believe that that stock, that Tesla stock, is going to go from 200, where it was at one time, to $800. And we strongly believe that it's going to continue to go up. And if we're right, we could potentially make a lot of money. If we're wrong, we could potentially lose a lot of money also. Now, where do we buy these stocks? Where we're going to buy them, they sell on a stock exchange, right? Just like if you ever go to a farmer's market, you could call that like an exchange where all the farmers congregate and meet and sell their wares. We have an exchange, the Toronto Stock Exchange, where all the various companies congregate, and that's where you could buy the various stocks of these particular company. So you buy and sell shares, and you have to go through a brokerage account. So the big five banks and credit unions, Investors Group, Edward Jones, and others, they also have brokerages, and you could buy it through what is known either as their full service brokerage, where you'll have an investment advisor that will provide you with advice, or you could buy it through a discount brokerage where they provide you with no advice. It is a do it yourself and you're on your own. If you choose the full advice brokerage, then you're going to pay a higher fee. If you choose the discount brokerage, you're going to pay a lower fee on the purchase and sale of the stock. Now, now there's been new entrants into this particular landscape. We have what is called as fintechs, financial technology companies that have come in and are trying to steal the lunch or eat the lunch of the big five banks brokerages like your TD Waterhouse. So you have these new companies like Questrade and Wealthsimple that have come in, and you could purchase stocks and bonds through Questrade and Wealthsimple, but at a much lower price than you could get at TD Waterhouse or any discount brokerages of various banks and so on. So that is, if you're thinking of opening a brokerage account and paying less fees, you should think of Questrade and Wealth Simple as a good mechanism, as a good place to buy. But don't forget, when you're investing in stocks, there's the possibility that the stock could go up and the stock could also go down. Are stocks suitable for low risk investors? Yes, absolutely. But you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. So if you only have $1,000, you don't want to put it all into a particular stock. You probably want to spread it around, and we'll talk a bit about that. So let's look at the Toronto stock market, the Toronto Stock Exchange, right? So here's what we're looking at this particular chart. We're looking from 1960, all right, up until recently, fairly recently. Okay, look at what the market is doing. So from the 60s, goes up and down, right? So no one no one could time the market. No one could tell you when exactly is the best time to buy exactly now and sell exactly now. So if someone had that capability, they would have bought right here, sold when it's right there, then bought back again at the bottom. No one has that kind of capability. But what you could do if you are investing and you're willing to take moderate to higher risk, and if you're investing for a long period of time, 10 years or more, then you're able to weather the ups and downs of the market. Because look at the trend. If you stayed invested from this time period all the way up until now, look at the trend, right? You would have gone through various depression, recession, financial crisis, COVID, and so on. And you, depending on when the market could have tumbled, or but the trend over the long term is the market usually is on an upward trend. I'm trying to type for Ellie and at the same time as I'm talking. So here's your answer. Oh, it was not Ellie, it was Erica. Here's your answer, Erica, that I mentioned. It was Questrade and Wealthsimple. Those are the two fintechs. So, so those catastrophes or those situation when the market went down, here is um, here is basically the market at various catastrophe throughout history, and we still see that even we've gone through the crash, the Great Depression, right? All of these, all of these terrible times, but yet the trend is still upward. Okay, but not to say, what are the best way to predict growth in a company, and what should you pay attention? Oh, very good, Joseph. Very good question. Let me ask you this, Joseph, and maybe you can answer your own question. Let me ask you this: What's the when you're looking at a company to buy? What's the best measuring stick? What are you looking for in a particular company? So forget supply and demand and all that. The main measuring stick, right? We're looking at the bottom line, right? The bottom line figure is the company profitable, right? So that's what investors are looking for. They're looking for profitability, right? So they're looking at profitability. Is that company profitable this year? And is it going to continue to stay profitable? Because your stock price, one of the main determinant of whether or not your stock price is going to go up is based on profitability or the anticipation that your company is going to be profitable. So that is probably the main aspect that I'm going to look at. I'm going to zero in and see what's the profits. What are the profits this year? What was the profit last year? And what's the trend? Is the profits going up or are they going down? If it's continuously going up, maybe it's a buying opportunity. If it's going down, then maybe it's time to get out. Yeah, I'm looking for a pattern. Definitely looking for a pattern. If you're in my CSC class, we would talk about the fundamental analysis and technical analysis. Fundamental analysis deals with the numbers. I would be poring over all of the financial statements of the companies and to identify patterns. That is the fundamentals, the guts of the company. That's what we would be looking at. But younger people, right? Younger people and are not. They don't want to. They don't have the time to pore over thousands and thousands of pages and use ratios. So what they'll look at various patterns to identify a particular pattern. So one of the things is that they're looking for is certain things that are cyclical, certain things that are going to reoccur over time. I'll give you an example. In Canada, we really have 4 seasons, even though we say we have 2 seasons, which is winter and spring, but we really have four seasons. So right now we're in winter. After winter comes spring. After spring comes summer. After summer comes the fall. And after the fall, we start all over again. It's back to winter. So we know this particular pattern will reoccur. So you have these technical analysis that they're looking for patterns. And in time, there are patterns that reemerges and you could benefit from that. I'll give you one. If you know that stock prices goes down on Fridays and goes up on Monday, you don't care about the stock. You don't need to figure out which stock. You don't need to figure out the profitability of the stock. You just seen this pattern, this generic pattern that keeps occurring time and time again. Stock prices goes down on Friday and goes up on Monday. So if you've seen this pattern, what would you do? What would you do? Stock prices goes down on Fridays and goes up on Monday. So you buy every Friday and then you sell on Monday. If you know this pattern's going to happen, you do this 52 times a year. Every Friday you buy, every Monday you sell. All right? And based on that particular pattern, people could make money by doing that. Maybe not a lot of money, but if you're multiplying this by thousands and thousands of dollars, it could make a difference. So a lot of times you have these two competing forces: people that believe in strongly doing analysis, and people that are just looking for patterns to take advantage of. If you ever get these advertisement on YouTube, or well, not that anybody reads the paper anymore, but on TV, where they say, I can make you $1,000 a day by investing in the stock market, what they're selling you is that they found a particular pattern. They crunched in all the data into this particular computer, and based on the algorithm, they were able to find a pattern, and they're going to sell you that pattern. And that pattern could be buy on Friday and sell on Monday. And for that, they're willing to charge you X amount of dollar. Now, is this like a guaranteed thing? Absolutely not. But there is the possibility of taking advantage of various patterns. I'll give you another one. There's a saying in the market, which is sell in May and go away. Sell in May and go away. So I'll just type it in the chat room: sell in May and go away. What that means, what they see, so in May, just prior to June, just prior to summer, right? In the summertime, we don't care about stocks. We don't care about investments. All we care about is vacation, having a good time. So not a lot of people are buying stocks in the summer months. So what tends to happen in the summer months is that the stock market goes down. All right. And the stock market goes down. So before the stock market goes down, sell in May, take your money, and then wait until the stock market bottoms out. And it's going to come back after the summer when we go back to school in the fall. And then we realize how much money that we spend for vacation. And now we've got to make a bit of money back, right? And now we start to trade into the stock market. The volumes in the stock market starts to elevate and starts to go up. And then we see that the stock market sometimes tends to rise at that time. So now we could take advantage of that particular pattern. Okay. So there's lots of patterns, but generally speaking, supply and demand, which is based on profitability. Um, one last thing about that is uh, people buy based on the company being profitable. If you take a look at Tesla, right now, uh, Tesla, well, depending on the accounting that they use, Tesla hasn't made a profit, but yet Tesla stocks has gone through the roof. Why has Tesla stock gone through the roof? Because they're anticipating once Tesla becomes mainstream that it would be highly profitable. It'll be the GM of our era. So even though it's not profitable now, right, we anticipate that it will be profitable in the futures, and that's why the stock is going up. All right. Okay, you're gonna get me talking forever about stocks. Let's go. Let's go. Oh yeah, we'll talk about Bitcoin. We'll talk about Bitcoin a bit later, about cryptocurrency. That's on my agenda. Uh, how does one jump off on that train? Uh, do you have, Dinah? Do you have a big seat belt? Do you have a good cushion that if it lands in properly that you won't get hurt? But we'll talk about that. Another good investment, right, would be real estate, right? So it could be, as I put, very satisfying, right? Because it's you enjoy the house that you live in, but it could also be lucrative. You can make money, right? Buying a property, especially if it's your principal residence, that's the house that you sleep in, that is one of the rare investments that you don't pay tax on, right? So what do I mean? I live in this house, right? So let's say I purchase it for $500,000, right? And then I sell that house to buy another house, right? and I sell that house for $1 million and I just made a profit of $500,000, I don't have to pay tax on that particular investment. So that is one of the rare instances. If it's the house that you live in, right, that you sleep in, and we're going to call that your principal residence, you don't have to pay tax. Now, if it's a rental property and it's an investment property, then that's another aspect altogether. Yes, there will be some taxes that you may have to pay as a result of that. But real estate is one great investment that you could use other people's money to make money. That's what that big fancy word leverage mean, right? So leverage means you don't have to put all the entire amount of money. If you're going to buy a $500,000 house, you don't need to have $500,000. For as little as 5% down, and my good friend Gene could show you how to buy a property and get the lowest mortgage interest rate with your 5% down and still be able to afford your monthly payments. But with as little as 5% down, you could have access to the Canadian dream or the American dream, the home ownership dream. So you're only putting 5% of your own money and the bank is putting the remaining 95%. Or you could put more than 5%. You could put as much as you can, but it cannot be less than 5%. If you want to own a property and obtain a mortgage, you need to have at least 5% down. I believe our next seminar, or our seminar in the spring that Gene Garraway will be discussing, we will be looking at home buying and mortgages, and we'll go a bit more in depth with regards to that. So my saying is that we all need a place to live, right? We might as well own where we live. Why pay somebody else's mortgage? Why not pay your own mortgage? And I know we have a seminar coming up with regards to that. All right. Now, here are five key ways that you can make money in real estate. So let's say you don't have uh, enough of a down payment. There's other ways. So the ways that I just talked about, you could buy a property using leverage, exactly what I said, using other people's money. Just put 5% down, and that's your principal residence. Or you could be like an investor. You can make money by becoming a landlord, right? Buying a property and renting it out. The beauty about that is that the interest that you pay for the mortgage, right? If you need a mortgage, the interest that you pay, it's tax deductible. You could deduct that on your income tax and make money as a result of that. So if you're not gonna live in it, then maybe you may want to be an investor, be a landlord, and rent out, buy a real estate property to rent it out. If you don't want to rent it out, there's various shows on TLC that talks about flip it, and people could flip, buy. It's almost like buying stocks. You're looking for an undervalued stock. The stock price should be right here, but for whatever reason, COVID or what have you, the stock price is right there. So you buy it here and you wait until the price goes up and then you sell it. So you could do similar thing with real estate. You look for an undervalued property for whatever reason, lack of proper maintenance. The properties in the neighborhood are selling for 700, 800,000, but for whatever reason, this property is selling for six. Buy it for six, fix it up, and then sell it for its true price, and you can make money doing that. Also, you could be, if you don't want to do it on your own, you could be part of real estate investment groups, and that way you could make money in real estate. You're kind of pooling your resources together. And lastly, you could buy real estate investment trusts. They're called REITs. They're basically stocks, right? You could buy it on the stock market, these real estate investment trusts. And guess what? You've seen those real estate investment trusts pretty much every day when you walk out, but you've never maybe paid attention. So if you go to a strip mall, right? So you go to a strip mall that has, let's say, Winners, Marshalls, Home Depot, Canadian Tire, one of those strip malls, right? If you take a look, there's a poll that basically tells you, there's a sign that basically tells you all the stores that are in that particular strip mall. If you look all the way to the top, or at times all the way at the bottom, it's going to tell you who owns that strip mall. And 9 times out of 10, it's going to be either RioCan, or it's going to be smart centers, the penguins. If you ever see the penguins, right, those are smart centers. Those are the real estate investment trust. So just put it, just putting it in the chat room. And those are the two main real estate investment trusts. Another one would be the owners of Yorkdale Mall and the Eaton Center Cadillac Fairview. You could also own a piece of that. So what does that mean? That means when Canadian Tire, Home Depot, Winners are paying rental income to the Smart Center or RioCan, you're getting a portion of that rent as income. So it's a very good, and it's a very good way to invest in the real estate market without being an owner. Because if you wanted to buy a commercial property, if you wanted to, build your own strip mall, it could cost you tens of millions of dollars to do that. And this is a cheaper way of taking advantage of the commercial real estate market. Okay, I know I'm kind of running out of time. Let's go to what Ellie has been waiting for, and that is cryptocurrency. Uh, yeah, you're right. Yeah, COVID, Ellie, has thrown a curve to a lot of people. And really, what COVID has taught me is to keep it simple and not take on more risk than you could chew, right? Because at any time you could be sideswiped. So you probably want to take on, a risk that's measurable to what you're willing and able to absorb. You need to always have your emergency fund, right, available. And again, if you still have some extra money to invest, then you could take on a bit of risk. So what is cryptocurrency? When cryptocurrency, those are the Bitcoins, Ethereum, and all these other alt currency. So they're a digital or virtual currency that is secured by cryptography. And what that does, it makes it almost impossible to counterfeit, right? So it's actually, if my stepson was here, he would go on for a long period of time about cryptocurrency, and he is well versed in that. And every day he tells me that it's more secure than money in the bank, right? Because it's almost impossible to hack the cryptocurrency. And now you have those those currencies, right, that are based on blockchain technology. So if you think about it, it's a bunch of network of computers that are basically connected to each other, and that adds another layer of cryptography, which makes it even more harder to counterfeit. And what has happened in years past, when cryptocurrency and Bitcoin being the currency of choice, what happened when it first came? There was a lot of negative connotation as a result of that, and they associated cryptocurrency as a place for money laundering, as a place that ill-gotten gains are gone to be washed. So that was the currency of choice by, let's say, drug dealers, and people trafficking in all type of illicit goods. So governments were not keen on basically raising the or making cryptocurrency mainstream. So they basically put a kibosh to that. And then what has happened recently um, is that it has become more mainstream. And as a result of that, there's been uh, various countries and various corporations that are seeing the value of having a cryptocurrency as opposed to having, the Canadian or US dollars. Because one, we don't have to print the money, right? It costs a lot of money to print $10 bills, $5 bills. That's why they've gone the way of the dodo bird with loonies and toonies, and now they're looking to replace the $5 bill. So now governments there'll be a good way to minimize the expenses of of having having to, print money. You could have this digital wallet that only you have access to. And as a result of that, the government would lower their expenses. And the potential for you to lose the money would be remote also, right? As long as you remember the password, you're okay. If you forget the password, you are out of luck because you're the only one that knows. You cannot go to somebody else and say, okay, here's three questions to reset my password. No, it may be it may be all gone. So then recently what we saw Bitcoin reach about $40,000 Canadian recently. It kind of fell back a bit. And what has happened, the reason there's such a surge is that it has now become mainstream. The big brokerage houses, the JP Morgans, the RBC Dominion Securities, the Chase Manhattans, and all that, they are stating that this is not a bad investment. And they're starting to track it down, and they're starting to put some of their investors into the mainly Bitcoin, but other cryptocurrency. And as a result of that, it gave the whole industry a boost to such a point that right now it's valued, the cryptocurrency is valued at about $600 billion, or I should say Bitcoin right now is valued as $600 billion, and there's 18 million Bitcoins available. So if you could do the math, you could see that it's worth roughly about $40,000 or so, 40, close to $40,000 US. But there's a lot of risk associated with that because it's not readily available. You cannot get it at your local bank. You're at the mercy of whoever the individual that is selling you that particular cryptocurrency. There are very few ATMs that you could use to withdraw cash from that particular cryptocurrency. So maybe once it becomes mainstream, and maybe that it could be an investment, a type of investment that may be suitable for you, but knowing that it is very high risk. It's a high risk type of investment. Lastly, I may have gone out of time. So you could take a quick look at Bitcoin, the chart for Bitcoin, right? 2013, you know, zero, and look what it went. But it went up, it went back down, but it's it could be a suitable investment. Not if you put again all of your money into crypto. And lastly, mutual funds. Mutual funds is it's actually suitable uh, for even small investors who have a small amount of money to invest. It's a way to pool your money, right? As a little investor, right? So everyone pools their money together, right? And all the money being pooled by, let's say, everyone in this webinar, right? We all put in $100, right? And let's say there's 80 of us. So now we've got um, um, $8,000 to be invested, and we have a professional money manager who's going to manage that money on our behalf and hopefully have that money grow. And if the money grows, then that's our return. If it doesn't grow, then unfortunately we have a loss as associated with that. But not generally speaking, mutual funds could range from low risk, where the chance of losing money is near impossible, to high risk in mutual funds, where there is a possibility of potentially losing money, but there's also the potential to making a great deal of amount of money. So those portfolio managers or professional money managers, those smart women and men, we're going to pay them a fee to manage our money, and hopefully their return is greater than the fee that we pay them. And for you know, they tend to do well. Mutual fund managers tend to do well, but a good chunk of them do not beat the return on the Toronto Stock Exchange. And certain individuals could do better than these professional money managers. But it's a good investment vehicle for small investors to begin to invest, right? Because for as little as $25, you don't need a lot of money. For as little as $25 on a monthly basis, you could invest in a mutual fund, again, from a low risk to a high risk, and you have increased immediate diversification. All right, diversification. That is the concept of not putting all your eggs in one basket. That is, for lack of a better word, just basically spreading your money around. This is what you should do. You shouldn't have all your money all in stocks, all in GICs, all into the real estate market, all into crypto. We should spread it around so that if one investment doesn't do so well, maybe the other investments do better, and on average we're okay. So we're not reliant on one investment for our overall return. Lastly, TFSAs versus RRSPs. Well, if you're younger than 18, then unfortunately you're not able to have a TFSA. But there is no age that you could open an RRSP. As long as you're making money, and we're going to call that earned income. So if you're working, so let's say you have a paper route, right? And they pay you X amount of money, right? So let's say you made $1,000, $2,000 for the year for your paper route. Well, you've just generated, excuse me, earned income, and you could open and um, you could have a TFSA. Sorry, you could have an RRSP as a result of that. So the best the best investment vehicle is going to depend. All right. So there's no right or wrong. They're both good investments to have. So if you could do both, so be it. A TFSA, basically the investment that you generate inside the TFSA grows tax free. You never have to pay tax on that investment. And when you take the money out, you still don't have to pay tax. The annual limit is $6,000. So you cannot put more than $6,000 into a TFSA. An RRSP, again, it's similar to a TFSA, except with the fact that you don't have to pay tax on the growth of your investment, but you also get a deduction from your income tax. Whatever you put in, so let's say you put in $5,000 into an RRSP, it's going to reduce your income by $5,000 and lower the amount of tax that you have to pay in any given year. So there is a maximum that you could contribute. So it's a maximum of 18% of your last year's income to a maximum of 27,830, whichever is smaller. So which one is the better one to invest? It's going to depend on your tax situation. Here's a rule of thumb. If you make more than $50,000 a year, then it's probably best to invest in an RSP. So what do I mean? If I only have $5,000 to invest and I don't have any extra money and I want to know, should I put it in a TFSA or an RSP? If my income is more than 50,000, then I would say invest in an RSP. If it's less than 50, then put it into a TFSA. So a TFSA again, it's going to depend. It may be a good tool to save. TFSA may be a good tool to save for short-term investment, where RSPs would be used for longer-term investment. And as Melrose says, you could actually do both. And the end of that is the end of my seminar. So what did we learn today? What did we learn today? A lot. Can you lose more than you invest? No, you could only lose what you invested. Uh, Maybe you get a price by turning your cameras on. Yeah, so we learn invest early. Great, Dinah. We learn sell. Oh, Juliet, sell in May and go away. I like that. All right, so you remember that. Remember that. Know your risk tolerance. Beautiful. So we learned a whole bunch of stuff, right? The importance of preparing a budget, identifying surplus funds, implementing an emergency fund, paying yourself first, all from being, budgeting like a boss, right? The power of compounding. Begin to save and invest early. Identify your risk tolerance, determine suitable investment or investments, and consider a TFSA or RRSP. That's all for me. I'm all tired out. I've got nothing else left. Questions?
So thank you everyone for joining us today. Does anyone have any questions for Pierre before we end the seminar? I know we ran a little bit over. Just want to let you know that our next seminar, which will be in March, will be on credit, as Pierre alluded to during his presentation. It'll be credit, using credit wisely. And we're going to have Jean Garraway, who has a lot of experience in the area, and she'll be doing that presentation. So we look forward to seeing you guys on that particular seminar coming up next month.
I just wanted
Yeah,
to,
go for it, Agassi.
sorry. Yeah, I just wanted to ask, like, because I'm finishing my undergrad and I'm planning on saving, but at the same time, I'm planning on paying my school debt. So any recommendations, or perhaps maybe the savings can be to pay off my school debt, or?
First thing, always pay off your debts.
Mhm.
Once you pay off your debts, right, then you will have some money to invest. So you want to take a look at the interest that you pay. It's a better return on your investment to pay off non-tax deductible debt early, pay it off as soon as possible, and then after that you could start to invest.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Could you do both at the same time,
Yes,
Mr. Tomiczek?
yeah, Mr. Tomiczek is only my kids call me that. No, not even. Yeah, you could. So maybe a good strategy. So let's say I have an extra $100 a month in terms of surplus. Put a majority of that towards paying down the debt, and then maybe put $25 a month towards investing. And if you're going to put $25, then maybe a mutual fund would be an ideal way to invest.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Question.
Yes.
What if you overcontribute to your TSFA?
Then Melrose, bad thing. All right.
Yeah, I realize it is a bad thing, but what happens? How does it work?
It's a 1%. It's a 1% penalty per month until you take it out. So what you need to do is contact the institution that has your TFSA to take the money out of your TFSA, so you stop that penalty going. Not sure if this was asked, but what documents, numbers, research do you use to determine if a stock will be profitable? Um, Here's the thing. There's no rhyme or reason. I could run numbers for you up to the wazoo and tell you that this stock will be profitable, and then it becomes the next Nortel, and it goes bankrupt. If you've never heard of Nortel, that's because it's gone bankrupt. It used to be the biggest company on the Toronto Stock Exchange, headquarters in Brampton, Ontario. And if you told someone in the early 1990s that Nortel will disappear in 2000, they're telling you they're going to think that you were smoking some of that good cannabis, right? And the valuations were up to the roof. It was positive. They went through some bad times, and they don't exist. So they're I could give you some. I could provide you some rules of thumb that you could use, but I don't want you to think that this is a definite. That because it meets all the criterias right now, that you're going to be able to make money. It is a risk that we are taking on unfortunately, but we'd like to think that it's a calculated risk that we are taking.
But sometimes, though, would you agree, Pierre, that at certain times, such as March 2020, when we had the market downturn due to the COVID crisis, um, a lot of people would think that certain stocks might outperform others, such as um, Amazon,
Yep.
um, FedEx,
Yep.
delivery companies. Now that there's a COVID vaccine, people might be thinking of uh, UPS because they have refrigerated service, right? So there
Okay.
are, and a lot of people now are looking at green companies
Hmm.
because of the new Biden government direction, right? So
Hmm.
you can take a lot of that into consideration as far as fundamental, economics is concerned, right?
Hmm.
Like some people like big box stores like Walmart,
Hmm.
Home Depot,
Hmm.
Coca-Cola, right?
Hmm.
Because they're mainstays,
Hmm.
but it's not rule of thumb, of course,
Hmm.
right? Yeah, yeah.
No, you're absolutely right. But don't tell anybody. Here's what I did. I looked at a buying opportunity when COVID hits. I must say, I've been fortunate, and a lot of us have been fortunate under COVID that my income stream hasn't been impacted. So actually, what has happened for me is that my expenses have gone down. Right. I mean, if you look at my dress, I haven't worn a suit. I haven't had to dry clean anything in a long period of time. You're not seeing you're only seeing me from the top down. I'm wearing my pajama bottoms at the bottom, right? So my expenses have gone tremendously down. As a result of that, my surplus has gone up. So what have I done? One, pay down the debt, like I always say. But second, what I did is that I looked at COVID as a buying opportunity, and one of the investments that I did pretty well on is I looked at companies, smaller companies that will benefit in terms of fighting trying to find a vaccine and so on. And I've been fortunate that that particular company that I've invested in has more than double in the past year. So you're right. So you're looking at opportunities when you're looking at the landscape. You're forecasting. You know what? Let's look at the summer. Who's going to do well in the summer, right? And who's going to do well in the winter? I know we're more green, but if you look at energy stocks right now, if you all you have to do go outside, right? Put gas in your car. What happened to the gas prices, right? It's a buck 10, a buck 12, right? And in the summer it was below $1. Why? It's the winter, right? And when typically prices tend to rise. So if you could foresee those type of things, right? Like Gene is saying, like the UPS, yes, you could potentially make money. And I always use the word potentially.
Potentially.
You're not gonna hear me ever saying that I'm guaranteeing that you're gonna make money. The only thing I'm gonna guarantee is a guaranteed investment certificate rate of return, that GIC, that I could guarantee.
One more thing that I thought I'd bring up is on Bitcoins.
Hmm.
Now, a Bitcoin might be between
Hmm.
36 and $40,000 right now, But there are ways to participate in the Bitcoin market, such as buying ETFs. For
Mhm,
example, TD has a Bitcoin ETF.
mhm.
The last time I jumped in and out, it was $9. I jumped out at 14. I
Yep,
should have stayed, God.
you should
But
still stay. You
you know,
should
if
still get
people,
back in. Yeah.
yeah, I know a lot of people are talking
Mhm,
about
mhm.
Bitcoin, but you don't have to go in and buy
The actual
a Bitcoin for $40,000. You can
you.
buy an ETF. And that's another thing that you guys can research
Mhm,
ETFs. They're
mhm,
cheaper ways of participating in markets, just like REITs would be a
mhm.
cheaper way of investing in real estate. Yeah.
Couldn't have said it better myself. You did it for me, so I'm speechless.
We're
Mhm.
partners.
Oh, what's an ETF? It's an ETF, and I'll just put it onto the chart. I'll give you a little known secret that I always that I tell my student that want to go into the field. It's ETF stands for Exchange Traded Fund. Uh, that's what an ETF is. Here's a little factor, and don't beat up your financial advisor about this, but 70 to 80% of portfolio managers, remember the mutual funds that I was telling you about? 70 to 80% of those smart people that manage the mutual funds, they don't beat the market. And what do I mean by the market? They don't beat the return on the TSX, right? They don't beat the return on the New York Stock Exchange, right? They don't beat the return on the NASDAQ. So the majority of those smart women and men, right, that invest your money into your pension fund, into your mutual fund, those individuals, they don't beat the market. So last year the TSX was up over 10%. So why am I going to give money to someone, right, that's not going to give me a return of 10%? So maybe that individual is going to give me a return of 8%. I could have went into the market and buy the TSX myself. When I mean the TSX, it's all the companies that are listed on the Toronto Stock Exchange. Typically, the largest 300 companies form the TSX 300. So every week when you listen to the news and it says the TSX is up or the TSX is down, it's telling you the largest 300 companies that are on the Toronto Stock Exchange, the majority of them went up or the majority of them went down. You could actually buy those 300 companies by buying what Gina said, an exchange traded fund. You could actually buy the TSX. You bypass the portfolio manager. You pay less fee and commission, and you have diversification, because instead of buying one stock, you've actually bought 300 stocks on the Toronto Stock Exchange. Again, I mean, I know we're kind of going overboard, and you could tell I could talk forever. My kids get tired of me when I start talking, and they say, "Daddy, please stop it." Right? We want to go to bed. So if you ever, if there's anything that you want, if there's anything that you want me to expand or any information, you have my email. By all means, you could always email it. You could always email me. And I believe, Rachel, that it is being recorded, and I will defer to Astrid or Wendy with regards to that.
Here,
Mhm.
it's Eleanor. Would you recommend that some of the young people take the securities course?
It's too expensive. It's a
Oh, it's
thousand.
it's really
It's
expensive now?
Yeah, it's really geared to for people that want to go into the industry. So it's about $1,000
No, I
to.
took it when it wasn't so expensive.
I
So
know, so did I. It was like 400, but don't tell
That was
anybody
still
all that.
expensive back in the
I
day.
know back in the day it was, but now it's about 1,100. But I'll let you know a little known secret. I am working on, because I teach the Canadian Securities course at both George Brown and Humber. So I am working on like a Canadian Securities course type of program, either on a webinar, but I'm praying that COVID by summer is over, and then we could have some face-to-face interaction, and I'll be able to bring that course slash seminar to the general public. But it's a good tool. It's very good.
Jean, can you talk a little bit more about your upcoming course before everyone goes away?
Oh, I will be speaking on using credit wisely, and I will be speaking about all the different credit options that we have, how people use and abuse them, and how we can actually destroy our future or pay a lot more money over the long term if you do not use credit wisely. Stay tuned. It's going to be filled with the things that ails us over the long term. Looking forward to it.
Excellent job.
Uh,
A lot of information. I learned a lot. I really want to thank you for your time and for giving such interesting, not only interesting, but providing us with a lot of information. And we can see that everybody enjoyed it for the amount of questions that we were getting throughout your presentation. We really appreciate it. And we're looking forward to more seminars with you. So thank you so much.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.